My name is Karen Zeal, and I am Minister of Faith Formation and Leadership for the Southern New England Conference, United Church of Christ. I'm so happy to welcome you to this webinar this afternoon for creating online Sunday school community. And hopefully we'll learn some tips and ideas and best practices for sharing faith formation and nurture with our children during this time of physical distancing. I'd like to take this moment to introduce to you our presenter this afternoon. Her name is Lauren Doobie, and Lauren is the Director of Children and Family Ministries at First Church in West Hartford. Lauren studied sociology and religion at Central Connecticut State University, and there she formed an informal Bible study for LGBT Christians to process and heal from strained relationships with their faith communities and religion. At her home church, the First Church in Windsor, Lauren taught Sunday school for 9 years, which also helped to shape her commitment to faith formation. Lauren has volunteered at the True Colors event, which is held annually in Storrs, Connecticut on the Yukon campus, and will be a presenter there for the next conference, which will be held at a date to be announced in the future. She proudly identifies as a queer, non-binary Christian and works regularly to create safe spaces in the church. And I'm very much looking forward to this time and to what Lauren has to share with us. And I'm sure you are too. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this to Lauren. Thank you, Lauren.
Hello. So I actually did this yesterday, but forgot to hit the record button for the first half of it. So I am re-recording it. It is different to do this without an audience, and it is definitely my first time trying to record something like this. So please bear with me. There's going to be some technical differences. But that's part of the joy of figuring out technology, isn't it? So today I just wanted to talk about pretty much choosing the right platform for you and your community and recognizing the needs that you have. Figuring out how to adapt content to those platforms because it is tricky and things are different right now. I wanted to show you some of the available tools that you can use online and how to get those to work with the platforms. I wanted to show you how to pull it all together to create a full lesson. And I just wanted to give some tips and tricks to make sure that you're using as much creativity as you can right now. It's difficult, so it's always helpful to have a little bit of help. So in choosing the right platform, you really have to ask 3 major questions. The first is, what does your community need? So something like resources can be shared in a blog or on a website, Facebook, Instagram, things like that. Lessons, if you just wanted to record a lesson like I am right now, you can just save those on YouTube, Vimeo, any number of video sharing websites. You can also put those on Facebook and Instagram as well. I don't think you can do Twitter, but worships, as we've seen this past week, can be live streamed, which is a wonderful tool, but probably not so applicable to other formats and other programs. So like a Sunday school classroom, live stream, watch parties, probably not what you'll want to use, but maybe it could work well for a youth group and some of our older friends. And then conversations can be had on Zoom and other video conferencing. So when I was trying to figure out what to do with my program personally, my first thought was, what do we need to prioritize right now? And what tools do I have to use? And so having been new at this community for about a year, one of the biggest priorities that I had was forming a community within the church school to really kind of connect everybody and build that relational culture. So for me, making sure that conversations could continue was the number one concern. And pretty much everything else came second. Whether or not a lesson was actually taught was not the biggest priority. It was making sure that the kids could see each other, talk to each other, and connect through the internet. So I chose to use Zoom, but Google Hangouts, Microsoft Word, WebEx, there's a million different video conferencing options, which kind of leads me to the next thing, is that what tools do you need to make sure that your platform is compatible with? So I chose Zoom because it meant that I could share both video and audio through screen share. So as you saw, I shared Karen's video just a few minutes ago, and I was able to share the audio through that screen share, which is not something that you can do with Google Hangouts. And my understanding is that, based on my understanding, you also have to look at what is most accessible for your community. So there are three main things that I had to think about that you probably will also be thinking about, though there will be many other issues popping up along the way. So my first concern is cost effectiveness. So thankfully, we had the budget to be able to purchase a subscription to Zoom. So we just got a step up from basic. And for some of the tools that we needed to be able to subscribe to those as well. You also have to look at the informational divide. So I was lucky enough to be at a church where I knew that most families had more than one device or access to a computer or a laptop with a browser, so that we could use a tool like Kahoot online or other things like that, which is not always the case, and I can recognize that. And there are ways around it, which you'll see later in this webinar. You also have to look at the technical ability. If you're working with younger kids, you might not be able to use fun games as easily as if you're working with people who are 10 and older. You also have to think about the technical ability of the parents and if they would know how to use these tools. And you have to think about whether or not you expect the parents to be able to sit through the Sunday school class with their kids. So if you have a service going on at the same time as your Sunday school video conference call or YouTube lesson, then that might not be as possible as, say, if your service is being recorded and is going to be shared at a different time. So those are definitely things to keep in mind as you decide the direction that you're going. Going forward, I will show you what I've done with Zoom and how I've made that platform work for me. So the next thing after choosing a platform is figuring out what content you need to use and how you want to adapt it to fit. So pretty much arts and crafts don't translate through the internet, unfortunately. We don't know what supplies our families have. We don't know how to kind of like instruct through a computer, something that's more physical. Games and things like that that might have required running or playing, talking, jumping, all those things don't translate the same way. So this is where the creativity will really have to shine through. And I think some of the biggest advice that I can give is just be authentic to the situation. There are a lot of things going on right now that are different. Address the emotions, check in, say hi, and really respond in a faithful way. So I know that I did a Good Samaritan lesson, very ironically, the Sunday that we had to move online. And it was unintentional, but we actually were able to take that time to talk about what being a Good Samaritan means right now and how to really take care of each other and our neighbors. You also will have to think about your audience. Right now, I know that we have our preschool kindergarten class separated from our 1st to 5th graders. But right now, we have a full-blown one-room schoolhouse with kids from the age of 2 all the way up to 10. Pre-readers, some readers. And so it's hard to kind of like strike the right balance. So you'll need to make sure that whatever you do is accessible to that whole age range, if that's the route you're choosing to go. You can have multiple Sunday school classes, I suppose, but they would have to be at different times and it might get complicated. So just be mindful of the audience, who you're trying to connect with, and how you can make sure that everybody is included and how to stay most accessible. There are a bunch of available tools. These are the ones that I've been using. I found Kahoot to be a ton of fun. Our kids are already using it in their classrooms. You can do remote learning through this. The drawback with that is that you do need two screens. So that can be a computer with two browsers. That can be a phone and a tablet. Pretty much any kind of like combination of two screens that you can think of. I know that I can use my Android phone with Zoom and have like one screen be small and the other screen be large, but that is not possible with iPhones from what I've heard. So you do need two. I've also been using YouTube videos. I know there are some copyright issues with that, so please make sure that you're careful in streaming and sharing, screen sharing YouTube videos. I have looked at PBS for resources on emotions and emergencies, kind of like dealing with some of the bigger emotions that have been coming up throughout this time. My kids love to wiggle, so Praying with the Body has been an excellent resource. At the very end of our Sunday school classes, we will use Praying with the Body videos, and we'll do some yoga, some movement, and it just kind of reminds them to center that self-care again, to get the wiggles out, to praise God, to recenter themselves, and to do that together as a community, which has been really good. If you use Zoom like I've been using, there are also whiteboard and polling features, which I absolutely love. So our kids at First Church West Hartford, we use something we call a prayer wall. And I'll see if I can pull that up for you. So as you can see, the kids will post their prayers at the start of every Sunday school class on these lines, and they absolutely love it, and we'll slowly build a prayer chain out of all of these papers. So the big thing is that we were missing that, but I used the whiteboard option to create our own prayer wall here. So as you can see, the kids can write right on in here. All you have to do is hit the annotate button at the very top of the screen. That was actually an accident. The kids were the one that found that tool, and next thing I knew, they were drawing all over my screen. It was beautiful chaos. You can also turn that option off in settings. So if that happens to you, there is a way to turn it off. But this way, the kids were able to maintain that tradition that they've been having in that routine. There is also the possibility of online prayer candles. So I know that youth groups have been using that, and that's been great. And there are so many others. We didn't pull up yesterday, we did not pull up any additional suggestions, but please feel free to add them to this list, send them to either me or Karen Zeal, or I think Debbie Glenn Allen, to add to this list, because it is hard to figure out how to make things work remotely. So these are some tips for pulling it all together. My first tip is to have a second screen with slides going the whole time. You can use a PowerPoint, you can use Google Slides, you can use, goodness, what is that app? I'm drawing a blank. But pretty much anything where you can put information and structure, routine into it is good. That will give your lesson some structure and a pattern so that the kids can follow along easily and know where they are. That will give them a great screen to look at other than your face the whole time, so that you're not just staring blankly at other people. Because it's a little weird when nobody's talking and you're just like smiling along. It is a wonderful new awkward moment to try to navigate. So I found that having a second screen helps to ease that. It also will help you to keep the kids on task. A lot of times, especially with our younger kids, they have a tough time focusing on a screen. So if you have bright colors, videos, graphics, things like that, that will keep their attention and help them engage in a different way to have that sort of second attempt at a kind of sensory stuff. You will need to prepare all of the links ahead of time and make sure that they play. So if you're using a YouTube video, if you're using a Kahoot, if you're using any other online game, make sure that it is open and ready to go ahead of time and keep that in a separate tab on the same screen as your slides. When you replace your slide screen share with another tab, it's just easier to be able to switch between the two that way. You can only share one screen at a time, so make sure that you are intentional and cautious about that. Throughout this time, you'll want to make sure that there are moments where the kids can stay active and stay responsive. So I know that I ask my Sunday school kids questions throughout the time. I put in polls, I'll put in a Kahoot. Sometimes I'll have a scavenger hunt or a talent show in the middle of it. So I'll ask the kids, I can ask you right now, go and find, this morning I asked them to go and find something with a rabbit on it. It doesn't matter what it is, it just needs to have a rabbit on it. And the kids will scurry off and go and grab it and bring it back, and that gets them moving and engaged. Try to find ways to keep consistency. So like I talked about with the prayer wall, it was a lot easier to kind of translate that into this kind of continuing process, because the kids are missing and losing an awful lot. And so making sure that they can have things that they can rely on is important right now. And then I think the last piece of all of it is to just release the expectations. Things are going to change. Things are gonna not work appropriately. Just release that expectation of perfection and adapt to the moment. There are gonna be things that you just won't expect. Your computer might freeze up, you might lose internet, a kid might start screaming and you don't know how to hit mute. There are so many things, so just be prepared, be flexible, and be present in the moment. So the last thing is really just kind of keeping that creativity going. So like I said, it won't always go right, and that's okay. Release yourself from that expectation. Give yourself the grace that you need to be able to do the work that you need to do right now. Try to do your best to actively practice self-care before and after you go into this process, because being present to the kids and what they need at the moment is going to be so important, and that will speak so much more to them than any lesson that you can teach. So be kind to yourself and bring that peace and presence with you. And make sure that you get others involved. So I have a friend, we call her Miss Julia. She is one of our senior citizens who is currently sheltering in place, and she has been joining our Zoom chats on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and she'll ask the kids questions, she'll read stories, she helped me judge our talent show. And it's just a good way to get people who otherwise wouldn't be involved with our kids engaged in a new way, to create those new intergenerational connections and relationships. So if you can, try to bring others in. It doesn't have to be all on you right now. So I will let this transition into the pre-recorded session that I've had right now. There were many questions that came about during that time, but if you have more, please feel free to contact me or Karen Zeal or Debbie Glynn Allen, and we will make sure that we answer them. So this is goodbye for Thursday, and I guess hello for Wednesday's recording. Thank you so much. I think there we go. We're recording. So we will put that recording up. Well, I'm assuming Karen will. I don't have access to do that. I am also more than willing to share these slides that I've prepared, and you can ask any questions along the way, and feel free to contact me or Karen with any questions that you have throughout the upcoming weeks. Yes. There was another question.
I didn't have a question so much as a comment. I've been doing like little skits and responsive readings with my kids through Zoom. So I email it out. Their parents are either printing it up or it's on another device. And it's working really well with breaking that first piece of it where they're like, I'm looking at everybody, everybody's looking at me. And it helps with that piece of it. So I've been having a lot of success with that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's always really fun. I know that Lisa asked how many participants. This past Sunday, I think I had 32 kids on the screens. It was a bit of chaos, but the fun type. And I work with birth to 10. So we had some 11-year-olds mixed in just because they like joining us every now and then. And then as young as probably about 2 joining us. Our sessions are about an hour, I would say, sometimes a little longer, depends on how much chaos there is, and sometimes a little shorter. So we've also been doing Tuesday and Thursday check-ins just because I wanted to make sure that we stayed in contact with our kids throughout the week as well while they're home from school. Those tend to be a little bit shorter, anywhere from 30 minutes to about 55 minutes. That's when we'll do the fun things like a talent show or a scavenger hunt. Yeah. Were there any other questions? Part of me feels like there's no way around the awkward everybody staring at me moment, Carrie.
Lauren, Laura Fitzpatrick Nager asked if you create a PowerPoint first and then upload it to Zoom.
Yeah, so I can actually show you right here. Can I? There we go. I used a Google Slide just because it was a little bit easier to have everything online, to share it that way.
Yep.
And then if you are a host, you will see a green button that says screen share, and you can just share it right from Zoom. So as long as you have the page open, you can see the full page here in the full screen. And then I'll just hit present, and that's all you can see. I don't know if that answered your question,
Yep.
Laura? Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
You can also upload a PowerPoint and files to Zoom, but it's harder to open that way. If I keep it this way through the screen share, I have control over the screen that the kids see, and it makes it a little bit easier to keep the flow of the class going. Okay. I'm reading from Lee. So the question is if we're having Sunday school classes before or after the stream service. I think that I'm lucky because our church is not doing stream services. They're pre-recording and then releasing at 10 a.m. So I have been having it right at 10 a.m. Just because that is what the kids are used to. Trying to keep that consistency was important to me. We worked very hard in the church school to build a routine. So trying to keep that in a new way was important. If we do go to a stream service, I would still keep it at 10 a.m. But I think that's because I'm in a community where I know that there's enough devices for the family to be able to see both the streamed worship and the streamed Sunday school. Which I know is not a possibility for a lot of communities. So I think that's a question that needs to be addressed on a community by community basis. And that could just be something to just ask the parents, what time would you like it at? Were there any other questions before I jumped into a Sunday school lesson?
Lauren, I have two on chat. There has been some discussion about copyright. So Debbie Glein Allen posted something about reading a book online, which is a good reminder. It's about fair use. It's the jury is out about that, and most folks are sort of erring on the side of the fact that of the four principles of fair use, two apply, and if two apply, then it's probably a safe thing to do. Someone was asking about YouTube video via screen share or Zoom, or said I showed a YouTube video via screen share on Zoom and it worked great. Someone asked about difficulties with sound with a link to YouTube. Any thoughts on that? I have had difficulty with sound with the link to YouTube. Any thoughts?
So I'm going to be honest, I don't know an awful lot about the copyrights, and I am not the legal expert to ask about that. I have not been recording my Zoom lessons, which I think is a safety approach because we do have kids. I keep an account separate from the rest of the accounts that others can log into, just because I want to make sure that any communication that we have with our children is only accessible by me and the pastors. So anybody who is child work approved at our church. So on that note, we also do not record these lessons. So I wasn't overly worried about the YouTube videos because I did not claim that they were mine. And we do look at them through YouTube. So I think the only difference is that we're all looking at it through a shared screen so that we can sync it up. It's murky territory, and I do know that. So I'm not sure. Don't take my advice on that one. Definitely contact somebody who would know more about it. As it goes, like storybook wise, I haven't used actual books. I'll have families kind of like come up with a story, tell a story about when they were a kid, and the kids love that. Yeah. Virtual safe church practices apply. Thank you, Karen. Oh, Debbie Glen Allen, there is one license options. Oh, I can't read all of that right here. So there's licensing options.
Temporary free licensing through April 15th, and Debbie has the link in the chat box. So.
Oh, Debbie knows enough. Thank you. Thank you. I think there was a question that I missed through all of that.
About raised hands, Jessica asks, do you recommend that all the kids mute unless they raise their hand? So how are they interacting in real time?
Yeah, I think that's a personal preference, and I think that will vary on your community. So with us, we just have chaos. I have them keep their microphones open unless I'm trying to say something important. Yeah, but you can have them mute if you would like them to. I think it depends on what you kind of see as the priority at the time. So my approach right now is that there's no lesson that I could teach that's more important than the community that the kids are building and continuing. So sorry, I'm trying to read the chat at the same time. So I don't have them mute just because I think they talk to each other, which is important and probably more important than anything I could ever say. But that's not always the case. And I recognize that. So I let them have controlled chaos, but I think that that's whatever you decide is most important. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to kind of take you through all of this, and so can everybody still see the same screen? Thumbs up. So you'll start the Zoom meeting in a normal way. I will usually have the sign-in screen open and ready to go for our kids so the families know that they got to the right page and the right meeting. Yes. And then I included pictures of my rabbit because usually the rabbit comes to visit on Sundays and they love to see him. So he's very cute.
Ah!
Sometimes he'll join us as well, but not today. Then I'll open up the prayer wall, and this is where the annotations come in. The kids will mark up the prayer wall, and it's just a beautiful thing to see. I can open up a screen. So at our church, we have a space for kids to pin up their prayers, which you should be able to see, that we can't access right now. And so on a Sunday morning, instead, I'll have them draw and take notes and put their prayers up on the digital prayer wall, and I'll save it and record it. And ideally, when I get back there, I'll write their little prayers down and put it on our chain. So then I've found, so this lesson was about the Good Samaritan. So we'll talk about what a parable is. I had a YouTube video that I will not play because we are recording and I don't want to get copyrights. So I found a YouTube video about the Good Samaritan that I shared. And then we'll go to a Kahoot, which you guys are all welcome to play if you'd like. Thumbs up if you want to play a Kahoot and see what it's all about. Oh, we have thumbs up. Okay. So we'll go to kahoot.it. So if everybody can open up a browser for kahoot.it, we only have, I can't go to Kahoot. 20 screens, so I might have to kick some people off at some point. So if you can open up a second browser. So at the kahoot.it webpage, you'll want to put in this game pin. So it is 1808568. Oh, I accidentally just messaged that. So this is definitely something that's a little bit harder for our younger people to navigate. So having an older sibling or a parent is usually important for anybody, I would say, under the age of 7. There is a special setting where you can make sure that they can't put an inappropriate name. So Kahoot is currently choosing your name for you, which I think is good and important.
I just became Speedy Lemming.
I don't know. I like the Wise Bunny and Awesome Rabbit, but I think I might be a little biased. So I'll just keep this open until we get all of our players. Does anybody need help accessing Kahoot.it with the game? Can't quite see how many screens we have.
I'm accessing on my phone and I can't figure out how to open another screen when I'm on my phone.
Yes, so that is the issue with the digital kind of thing. So you have to, unfortunately, you need to have 2 screens in order to use a Kahoot, which is definitely what I had to think about going into this. It works best on a computer. So if you're on a phone, you'll have to switch between screens to see the question and answer. Unfortunately, that's the way that it is for this one game and for a few different ones. Okay. Is anybody else having issues?
I can't get to my browser to open up another, I can't figure out how to, yeah, get to another browser.
Yeah, so you'll just need another tab open.
Right,
So
I'm
if you, yeah,
struggling. I don't know why I can't make my screen go back to the unwide screen. So, but just keep going. I'll follow.
okay, okay. I think you can join the audience, but I'm not entirely sure
Yeah,
here.
that's fine. That's
We
fine.
have 17 players. Oh, 18. Should I hold on for anybody or can I hit start? 19. We can have one more. Okay. So I'm going to hit start. So, what is a parable? So you'll click the button on your screen that coordinates with the answers. So it's a story that teaches a lesson. Yeah. So if I'm working with pre-readers, I'll read out all of the answers with the colors, and especially if somebody is using one screen, that can work if they can focus enough to hear and click at the same time. So for example, I'll say blue is a story that teaches a lesson. So we'll do a couple more questions just for the fun of it. So where was the man going? So the man that was going to a town. So he was going to Jericho. Yes. So we only got, oh, let's see, this is a lot of math to do right on the spot. It looks like 15 answers out of 20. So of our friends that didn't answer, do we know how to use the app?
I'm not sure I'm fine here.
I'm having a hard time with the two screens.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I love those folks who are honest and say, I know how to use it. I just didn't read my Bible enough.
I
Or
have
I
to
came
say,
in late. Or my
this-
device is having difficulty.
this question has tripped up a lot of people, a lot of adults, which I think is great because the kids get it 100% of the time. So we'll do one more question just to see how we're doing. Clicking on the wrong screen. Yes, you can't click on the Zoom screen to click the answer. You do have to click on the other screen, the remote screen. Okay, I don't remember what the next question is. Let's see. True or false? Jesus was telling a true story. So blue is true, red is false. True, false.
Here's a hint.
Perfect. So as I kind of showed before, so blue, true, red, false, that tends to be easier for our younger kids because there's only two colors and only two answers. But part of me wonders how much if they just guess and they get it right about half the time. So we'll go back to our thing. So we then talked about who is our neighbor. And you can do tons of fun things with graphics. So we talked about how we build our community around us. Then I'll introduce another video. So this was a video about climate change. So we talked about environmental justice and things like that. Then we talked about kind of like the earth. We had a conversation here. Sorry, I'm trying to read the chat and talk at the same time. I think I'd be better at multitasking by now.
Some question about how the colors show up on different screens, Lauren. You said blue is true, red is false, but for other screens, it says I had no idea what the color matched. Must not be seeing the right screen, so.
Yes. So you do need to see
phone.
both screens in order to see the question and the answers. So you answer on the second screen, and the second screen doesn't have the answers written, it just has the colors. And that's so that the kids are actively kind of like looking at that second lesson and involved kind of like outside of just their one personal sort of screen. So I'll usually ask some probing questions. And then the kids, my kids are wigglers. They like to wiggle and move. And so I've been pulling out the Lord's Prayer, as I said before, with the praying with the body and sharing that. And I'll open up the space. We'll make sure that there's enough space and play that video, share it with them. They can see me moving, they can move. And that's just been a really good way to kind of wrap things up, because I think it's a good reminder of trying to center yourself and pray. But also it's kind of like that good self-care moment of let's do yoga together, let's move and be mindful of our bodies. And then I put a reminder to join us at the next one. So yes, there is a question from Linda Allen. So when you say we talked about, do you mean audio or chat? So either works. If we have something like 35 kids, and I'm trying to make sure that we have an actual question and answer moment, I'll have them answer through the chat, depending on the age range. So as long as there is an older person paired up with the younger friends, then we'll use the chat option. If not, we'll use audio. And sometimes we'll have a combination of the two. So if we have a quieter friend, they know that they can always go to the chat to be heard, which I think is special because that's not something that happens in a regular Sunday school. Okay. So I just wanted to open it up to more questions because I know that there's probably an awful lot. I know that I have and had a lot going through this process. I still have a lot of questions myself, but I wanted to be available as a resource, and we have a lot of resources right here in this space. So does anybody have a question about kind of the practicality of running it?
Nicole, did you unmute your mic? Can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I did. I
It's
did
okay.
it in both directions, just in
Yeah.
case. Let's see, what was I going to say? Okay, so in creating your PowerPoint for each week, are you creating the questions in Kahoot, or is that set up? Or
Yes, so I did. The wonderful thing about Kahoot that I can show you actually, okay, there we go, is that when you make a new Kahoot, you can actually use an old one. So like if somebody's has questions that they've already made, you can use those.
okay.
But you can also, oops, I pushed the wrong button. So I can, I'm pushing a lot of buttons. I did not mean to push half of them.
Oh, I see.
Create. And so you can go to the question bank. And so let's say we want to say, what causes global warming? You can click any of these and they'll add right on into it with the graphics. So
Oh,
let's say
good.
that one. So that's helpful.
Mhm.
I have not known it to have an awful lot of,
It's very confusing. I mean, I'm caught in the middle of it. I'm like, what?
so I don't quite know who said that one. So you can add a question from the question bank. So you just kind of like look it up like you would in Google with that search bar there. So you click the question bank. Or you can add and create your own question with options, and then you just have to check which one is the right one.
Okay.
Our questions, so we did the basic, so we only have the quiz or the true and false, but you can have open-ended puzzle questions where the kids have to like place everything in the right space. I haven't done the word cloud one yet, so I don't know what that's like. You can actually have slides in your Kahoot, which is pretty cool. And you could put a poll right in there, but I decided that I didn't quite need that tool because we have it through Zoom.
Okay. When you first started, I just had one question. When you first started, did you send an email out to the families to find out if everyone would have access via video and things like that? How did you set this up?
So I did a lot of work with community organizing, and I've learned the best way to contact people is by calling them. So I called every single one of our families that we had contacted within the past year to let them know that we were shutting down our program and moving to be online. Thankfully, in my community, it was not really a question of if they had access as much as when they would have access. But I do recognize that's because I work in West Hartford, and there are a lot of resources there. For our friends who maybe aren't as technically abled and don't want to go online, I do make sure that I follow up with phone calls. After this, I'll be making another round of phone calls once a week. Every Wednesday, I check in with all of our families. So there are limitations to this method. I think you'll find that there are limitations to all of these methods because it's such a new thing. And there are a lot of different parts of all of these kind of communities. Every program will have its limitations, but it's about what your community needs at the moment and responding to that. Yes.
Lauren, we have a couple of chat questions.
I lost my chat screen.
That's okay, I've got it. Let me read them to
Okay.
you. One person would like to know, Lisa from Woodstock would like to know how you do a talent show. So can you say a little bit more about that?
So I can show you that screen. Let's see. I know you can see everything that I'm showing right now. I don't know where it quite went. But I essentially just gave every kid 2 minutes. I muted all of the other kids for that moment. I emailed the parents maybe about 30 minutes ahead of time, texted some of them to say, anybody joining us, prepare a quick talent that can be shown in front of a computer screen. Thankfully, a lot of talents can be, especially with a fair amount of creativity. So each kid had 2 minutes, and then I had a guest judge who's one of our older congregants join us, and we went offline to create awards for the kids, and I put those straight into the PowerPoint. So everybody got kind of like a superlative type of an award. And it was just good. I would pin the screens so that the kids, that was the only thing that the kids could see at the moment was the one who was performing. And it worked out pretty well. So the talent show is probably one of the easier things to do online. A scavenger hunt is certainly a unique one. So I usually will tell the kids to try to find a random thing. So we can do it right now, find a chapstick. And they have 30 seconds to go around their house, find a chapstick, and bring it back to show into the computer. See?
Go, Carrie Stewart.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just kind of like a fun way to get them moving. Dance parties are always good too.
Lauren, someone asked about how you do the drawing prayer wall. A little more about the prayer wall, please.
Yeah, so I have the one slide that's essentially a blank slide here. And then the kids, so this kind of happened naturally. The kids found the pencil button and clicked it and started drawing all over my screen. And I couldn't stop them. I recently found the tool to stop them. But instead of kind of trying to dissuade that, I tried to re-engage them in a way that was a part of their natural pattern and routine already. So I have kind of just like this blank slide going on, and then the kids will click that pencil button. They know it when they see a blank screen that they're invited to draw on it. And they'll just start drawing. Oh, I accidentally pushed to the next page. Yeah.
Lauren, we're wondering where the pencil tool is. Some folks cannot find it, and we don't know if that's a function of a certain level of subscription to what you're using, or if we just don't know where to find it.
So that
I have it on the top of my screen. It says you are viewing Lauren's screen, and to the right it says view options. And when you drop that down, it says annotate, and then you can pick your tool.
Oh, there it is, Carrie. Thank you. Yep, now
You're
I see it.
welcome. Yeah, so I can't see that screen. I have absolutely no idea how the kids found the button. They just, sometimes unintentional things happen. Oh, look at that. From my end, there is a like an annotate button, so I can erase anything that's inappropriate pretty quickly, and I can stop all annotations pretty quickly, which is good, especially if you're working with older kids. I'm sure that'll be an important thing. Oh, I found my chat bubble. There we go. Okay. Okay. Oh, this is so cute. Look at all the colors. Were there any other kind of like technical questions on how to do things, what you would like to see?
Lauren, I have a question. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, some of us are natives and some of us are immigrants to the technology. If you thought about sort of the best, simplest way you could begin this process with your group, what would you suggest to folks?
I think with kids, especially keeping them engaged online, making sure that you have a screen to share is definitely going to be one of the biggest pieces. So I think creating something like, oh, somebody drew a bunny. Sorry, that distracted me. Creating something like a Google slide is important because the bright colors will draw them to that, but also it makes it so that there's like that structure, you have that flow, and it makes it so that if nobody else has their screen on or their video on, there's something to look at other than like people awkwardly staring at the computer screen. And I think that's definitely one of the first things that I would suggest doing is creating a PowerPoint. Yeah, and then learning how to screen share that one PowerPoint. So we do have a paid account for this. That is because we do need to have more than the 3 screens going for over 40 minutes. So we just have the like basic plan that is up from, barely up from unpaid, the free version. And that's working out pretty well for us. We, in the church school at the very least, we don't need more than that. But I can't imagine more tools is worse. So if you want to go for more, there are a lot of questions going on. Okay. PowerPoint or Google Slide, doesn't make a difference. I use Google Slides because I know that if something happens to my computer, I can access that anywhere. It's also easier to put up with other links, but it really doesn't matter. I could make a PowerPoint and screen share it just the same. I just tend to like using internet-based things for something like this. Oh, so there are reactions. That's one of my favorite things to use for the kids because they can give a thumbs up pretty quickly when they're ready to go. Or sometimes I'll use the hand clapping as like a, hey, stop. I guess you can assign different meanings to whatever emojis you'd like to. Yes, those are the only two emojis though. New Milford has Microsoft OneDrive. Yeah, so Microsoft I've heard works very similar to Zoom. It probably has different tools and works in a different way, but I imagine it would have, for the most part, the same capabilities. So I think that's just a matter of preference at that point, which one you would prefer to use. Have you tried to do object lessons for your presentation? We have not. I have not. That one's been a tough one to translate online. I have heard some great ideas of using like everyday household objects that the kids might have and asking them to bring them onto the screen, bring them with them before joining. But for the most part, as I kind of expressed before, for our community, it was less about learning a lesson and more about making sure that the kids are interacting with each other in a faithful way. So yeah, it would be great if you have an idea on how to bring object lessons in. I would love that, and I would be more than willing to try anything at this point. So as Karen said, the on-hand items are difficult to kind of know what everybody has. So right now, thinking about Palm Sunday has been probably one of the hardest things because we don't know if our kids have construction paper, we don't know if they have chalk, we don't know what tools they have. So sometimes even if you just reach out to parents and ask, what do you have on hand for these lessons is important. Okay, if you have a 10 minutes prep, maybe 3 slides, what would you do? Goodness. I think depending on the age of the kids, high and low check-ins is always important. So something good, something bad. I know that we've been kind of working through big emotions with our kids. So talking about, they wouldn't know it with these words, but kind of the grief and the anticipatory grief of the moment. Sorry, oops. Yeah. Trying to understand like what we're losing and what we're gaining right now and connecting and processing that together. So highs, lows, I think a prayer is always important. So any type of prayer that you can get in there that is kind of interactive in a way. So movement works for us. Some kids like singing, some kids do better with a repeat after me. Oh goodness, 10 minute prep time is hard, but something like that. I would say check-ins and prayers are the most important parts, and then having something interactive in the middle. So there we go. What is the best part of your week? What was the most challenging? I think this past week I said, what is something that you've missed during the past 2 weeks? What is something that you're thankful to have? Carrie Stewart sent care packages home with the families with supplies for upcoming lessons. So I actually meant to mention this before, but I was lucky enough, we had planned Lenten boxes already with devotionals set through all of Lent through Easter. So that was a good thing. So we didn't have to worry about that as much. They have like small mini lessons and devotionals, small objects for their object lessons. They have a prayer worksheet. They've got coloring. So they did, thank goodness, already have that. I ran around delivering boxes about 2 weeks ago to front doorsteps, pre-sanitized. Yes. We do 10 a.m. check-ins on Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. So Cindy videotaped the children's messages with an object lesson. Did you want to talk about that a little bit more, Cindy? So you just have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I'm unmuting. Yeah, I mean, we've been challenged with trying to find families that have appropriate devices to really do a streaming. So I've been videotaping children's messages. They've been a little bit different each week, but I follow it up with some challenges that I've given them and then appropriate worksheets to kind of support the lesson content. And this week, just as an interesting thing for them to do, they're making some encouraging signs that they can put either out by their mailbox, on their windows, in their lawns, whatever, and then they're sending me pictures of them when they're created, and we're going to put them on social media for the church. So just a way for them to see their artwork and to give them something to do that's not super complicated and taxing for the parents as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. I wouldn't have thought about the signs.
Well, hopefully they'll have fun doing it. We'll see.
Yeah. So in our Lenten they're boxes. In our Lenten boxes, I included action cards, so they have different actions still throughout the days. Probably have to figure out how to replace those from a distance at some point. So that's always good. Jessica asked, how do we do the movement? Can you do a demo? So right now I'm using the Praying with the Body videos that I screen share. I'm now wondering about the copyrights with that. And I'll do it at the same kind of time as the kids. There is going to be a lag, but I haven't known 10-year-olds to be overly picky about that. I would love to do a demo, but I am not dressed appropriately to do yoga right now. But essentially just kind of like that yoga movement. Valerie asks about music. Has it been difficult to hold sing-alongs? There's a ton of lag. It's so awkward, but I think that's part of the joy of it. If you can embrace the chaos, I suggest it. The kids have a song, so they sing This Is the Day. It's a great call and response song that gets them to focus. They never sing at the same time, but who cares? It's fun. How do I organize the check-in? So I have a poll that I usually use. Let's see if I can pull it up on this. I might not be able to. Where I, oh, it's not on this one. So I have a poll where the kids will check what they're feeling and how they're doing. And then I'll go through, the polls are anonymous, so that helps a little bit. And then we'll go through and I'll check in with them each by name. So I'll call, like, we'll say David because he's the first one. I'll ask, hey, David, how are you doing today? What's something good that's happened? What's something bad? It takes a long time, but it's important. And we have a lot of time right now, and we always have time to form community and to make sure that we're doing well. Oh, David gave me a thumbs up. I'm hoping that means he's good. Yeah. Okay. Singing and praying aloud with audio is difficult. Yes. It's still fun, as hard as it is. And I think releasing those expectations and just accepting the limitations will be important. The Russell family is creating cards for first responders and Happy Easter cards for older members and mailing addresses. that is a great idea. From our end, my household has a lot of high risk right now, and so we're not doing anything like that, but that's just out of an abundance of caution. And I think it's great to stay connected. So we aren't sending physical objects, but the kids are still kind of making online art through our prayer wall and sharing messages over technology. So I actually have to get going. So we will be ending this right now. So I'm going to pass it off to Karen to wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have any questions, you can always direct them to Karen or me, and we'll try to get back to you.
Oh, thanks so much, Lauren. I wanted to thank you for your time and your expertise and your willingness to share with all of us the joys and challenges of how you've found your way through this time and creating these opportunities for children and families in your church. Lots of good ideas were shared today, and it reminds me that the wisdom is in the room. So when we get together like this, there are lots of ways that we can spur one another on and share good ideas and think about best practices for staying in touch with our families and providing opportunities for faith nurture during this time. My colleague Debbie Glein Allen is on this Zoom as well today. We would love for you to contact us if there are things that you need or ways that we can be helpful. You can find our information on our website, and it's www.sneucc.org. And there you'll also find, if you go to the main coronavirus page and look to the blue box in the left-hand side, you'll see that we've curated 5 pages of resources for you. And we have decided that we will, in order not to overwhelm people, because we know there's so much good information coming this way and so much information coming our way, that we've decided to, along with the archived pages of resources we have in 4 categories, we've decided to share the top 3 every week. And those will go out on Thursday. That update will happen each Thursday right before the live Facebook Live meeting with the 3 conference ministers, the Bridge conference ministers. So thank you all very much. A reminder that on Wednesday mornings from 9:15 until 10, there is a sacred space for you all to join at any time between now and the end of April. We had our first attempt at a sacred space this morning called Chapel of the Heart, and it's for soul and connection, soul space and connection. And if you'd like to join us, please feel free to do so. Information is on our website about that as well. So thank you, Lauren. Thank you all for joining us. Enjoy your day. And remember, be gentle with yourselves and be realistic with your expectations. Let's all do what we can do and work to our strengths in this time. So thanks, Lauren, again, for your expertise and your willingness to share. We're grateful. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.